Okay, I just couldn't resist giving it a go. But don't be fooled, there's still lots to do. To wind back, at the end of the last video I had packed the pistons and assembled the cylinder blocks. Next job is to crack on with the valves and steam chests. After fitting the valve guide to the steam chest body, I insert the valve spindle along with its O-ring into the guide. I pointed there to a lock-in nut which I made as I assumed that these would be required for the spindle to buckle connection, but on reflection I realised that they will serve no purpose, as once the spindle is attached to the combination rod it cannot unscrew, so that will need to come off later. Next I screw the spindle into the buckle, and at this point I just screw it in an arbitrary amount as I'm not looking to set the timing just yet. It's not very clear, but I do try and show that the bottom of the spindle end has been modified so it's now different from the top. Then after this I place a gasket under the steam chest, and this, like the cover gasket, is handed, so it needs to be placed in the correct orientation. And then likewise a top gasket and then the cover. To secure the cover I'm using 1-inch long 5BA bolts, but they are really a bit too short, so I'll probably end up making some studs instead. And it should also be noted that the bolts next to the frame at the front will need to be replaced with countersink screws so that they do not foul the running boards. Assembling the valve gear really is a very fiddly job, although I've now done it a few times and it does get easier every time. As could be seen when I was fitting the steam chest, the cylinder block was already bolted to the frame. Before fitting it to the frame I had attached the crosshead and connecting rod and fitted the whole lot together as a mini assembly. Likewise with the motion bracket, expansion link and eccentric rod, all attached in one as a sub-assembly. The eccentric rod I then bolted to the return crank, which brings us to what is currently on the screen. Next job is to fit the slide bars, and I start with the bottom one. To fit the bolt to the bottom of the rear cylinder cover I need to turn the chassis over, which I don't show here. The bolt is now in place and I can tighten it up before fitting the bolt at the other end to the motion bracket. Getting the top slide bar in place is particularly difficult as it's quite congested in between the connecting rod and the expansion link. This normally involves a bit of swearing, but I do get there in the end. The associated bolts are simple to fit and tighten, and with the slide bars in place the motion bracket really locks up quite nicely. I've already got the combination lever attached to the union link, so the latter is fitted to the drop arm and the nuts screwed on. The combination lever valve spindle pivot pin is now fitted, and I press it into place using a small G-clamp. The magic of video editing makes this look very simple, but getting the parts lined up whilst trying to tighten up the clamp is challenging. And finally I fit the die block, although my hand is blocking the view, the radius rod, and press the associated pins home. I'm not Loctiting any of the pins at this stage, as I'm pretty sure the valve gear will be coming apart a few more times yet. This last pin between the radius rod and die block is the most awkward of the lot to press home. And this brings us very nicely back to the start of this video, but there are a few things I've not videoed. I have turned and fitted 2 blanking plugs to the oil feed inlets on the steam chests. I have checked that the pistons are roughly set centrally into the cylinder bores. An adjustment for that is via the threaded piston rods. And I have also checked the valve travel in the steam chests, which for both does look to be offset, which will require shortening of the valve spindles to resolve, I think. So with the radius rods pushed down to give full forward on the reverser, I apply some air and off she goes. Thanks for watching.